Being a marketer's no sweat. You just have to manage dozens of channels, launch hundreds of campaigns, score thousands of leads, and okay, fine, it's a lot of sweat. Unless you have HubSpot's AI-powered marketing tools to help you do all that and more. Get started at HubSpot.com/marketers.
This episode is brought to you by NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube TV. There's plenty to be thankful for. Your friends, family, and the fact that you can now get NFL Sunday Ticket for only $89. So thank yourself this holiday season and watch every game every Sunday when you bundle NFL Sunday Ticket and YouTube TV. Sign up now at youtube.com/Sunday Ticket. Offer ends December 2nd. Local and national games on YouTube TV. NFL Sunday Ticket for out-of-market games excludes digital-only games. Terms and embargoes apply.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to this, well, it's technically not the start, but the start of week 13 in the National Football League, as in the game of the week. The Philadelphia Eagles travel to Baltimore to face the Ravens in a highly anticipated potential Super Bowl preview this Sunday at 4:25 p.m. Eastern Time. I'm your host, LG Rell, and as always, I am joined by my co-host, Connor Donald. Connor, we're in for what should hopefully be an exciting game on Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it's setting up to be a great game. You know, you got the two of the best free agent signings of the offseason in Derrick Henry and Lamar and Saquon Barkley that are going to go one-on-one. You got Jalen Hurts against Lamar Jackson. It's a star-studded affair. And like you said, it could potentially be a Super Bowl preview. There's few and far between that would be, but this one is definitely one of them that could heavily be considered, depending how the Ravens do down the stretch. They've stumbled a little bit, but this should be a good matchup either way. I wish it was a Sunday nighter, to be honest.
I'm glad it's not a Sunday nighter, to be honest. I would much rather it be a 1 p.m. game. I like 1 p.m. games. But before we jump into our preview of the game, as always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Greenhour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHerald54. Follow Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, wherever you get your podcast at Eagles Pinpool Network, and rate and subscribe the show, the network, all the other shows. And if you're joining us live, let us know your thoughts in the comments, your predictions of the game, the player to watch, maybe a key or two. It should be, as E-Money Bentley joins us, go Birds. Yes, sir. Go Birds. Thank you for joining us. It should be as we mentioned, a very, very exciting game on Sunday afternoon. I don't know if you had a chance to watch the Chiefs get lucky again and defeat the Raiders 19-17. The Thanksgiving Day matchups.
I actually did not. I was doing bedtime with the kids, so I did not get the chance to see it. But I saw all the people reacting, so I'm gonna have to go back and see what this lucky luck was this week.
The Chiefs are so lucky. Quickly, Thanksgiving Day, the Lions defeated the Chicago Bears. I don't know what the hell the Chicago Bears were thinking, as the Lions improved to 11-1. The Bears fired Matt Eberflus, which they should have did in the offseason. But he is gone after that missed time management. That was terrible. The Dallas Cowboys narrowly defeated the crappy New York Giants 27-20. Question for me, what seems worse, the Giants or the Sixers? Easy question. The Sixers are worse. The Giants are bad, but they can beat the Sixers in any sport. And then the nightcap, the Green Bay Packers defeated the Miami Dolphins. And we have a Ravens fan joining us. Okay. We like to see the fans from enemy territory come in to our podcast. Let us know what your thoughts on the game. I'm excited. Lamar Jackson is 23-1 against the NFC, with his one loss being to Daniel Jones, which is weird. Daniel Jones and the New York Giants. The Eagles haven't had much success against the Ravens. I remember 2008, Kevin Kolb threw like a 108-yard interception return for a touchdown by Ed Reed. The game 4 years ago, Lamar Jackson, I think, ran all over the Eagles, if I'm not mistaken, at the link. But this should be a good game. The big question going around is if you had to pick one threesome, I don't know if the word threesome is the word to use, would you take Nick Sirianni, Jalen Hurts, and Saquon Barkley? Or would you take John Harbaugh, Lamar Jackson, and Derrick Henry? And this is interesting if you think about it, because I think the running backs are probably a wash. I mean, they're both great running backs. Saquon is a little bit younger, but both of them are, in the systems that they're in and working perfectly. Lamar's better than Jalen, easy. He's going to potentially be a 3-time MVP. And then you think about the coaches, like John Harbaugh has won a Super Bowl. There's been a lot of talk of what Nick Sirianni, like the decision making he has, but John Harbaugh has also had some questionable decision making, going for it on fourth downs, going for 2-point conversions, a couple of different things. So I think if you think about that, if we wanted to add another aspect to it, you could add the receivers, and I think the receivers are better in Philly than they are in Baltimore. If you do number one receiver, AJ Brown's going to be better than Mark Andrews or better than Zay Flowers, whoever you're going to put up as the number one receiver over in Baltimore. But what are your thoughts on that when you kind of take the main cogs of each team? The head coach, the quarterback, and the running backs, because they're probably the best players on the team right about now for both teams. Who do you think that favors between the Eagles and the Ravens?
I would say that it favors the Ravens. I think, they've established it. They've proven that they can play at the highest level every single year and continue to constantly remain competitive and the top of their division. Of course, in the NFC East, there's always a back and forth. We never seem to have repeat winners for whatever reason. But that also could be the inconsistency of the top teams. The Cowboys are having a terrible season. We know that the Commanders have had decent seasons, but have since kind of fallen off. They're coming back a bit. The Eagles have a lot of inconsistency in their seasons as well. While we've never entered like a rebuild, we have had to retool on the fly and had some less than stellar seasons thanks to the retool. So I would definitely go with the Ravens if we're talking purely trios. But like you said, as soon as you start throwing other elements into it, like you said, the receivers probably give an edge to the Eagles. If you look at the tight ends, you probably give an edge to the Ravens. When you get into the secondary, the Ravens' biggest weakness is probably their secondary. One of the Eagles' strengths is their secondary and the youth in their secondary. So as soon as you throw other elements into it, you can probably get it to that these teams broken all the way down are almost 100% even split down the middle. But when you look purely at the trios, I think Harbaugh and Jackson just have that established consistency that the Eagles have not been able to get out of Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I like this. I like the Ravens. I was a fan of Lamar when he got drafted. There were a lot of people saying that he couldn't be a good quarterback in the NFL. He wasn't going to be a great passer, but I mean, I think he has put all those doubts to rest. He's the fastest and easily the best running quarterback since Michael Vick, even better than Michael Vick, I think. And I loved Vick. But yeah, like Lamar Jackson is very, very good. And he can make something happen out of nothing. There was a play a couple of weeks ago. I forget who was it. Was it? I don't know if it was him or maybe it was Josh Allen. But he has made some great plays. We have a couple questions first. Which collapse was worse, the Bears or the Raiders? I would say the Raiders was worse. Or no, excuse me, the Bears was worse. They had a timeout. Call a freaking timeout. If you look at what the Raiders happened, the left guard tapped the center, and that's usually the signal to snap the ball. So I don't know if there was miscommunication there, but you have a timeout. You cannot go into the locker room with a timeout. And the Bears went into the locker room with a timeout. That was terrible clock management by Eberflus. And look, a lot of people are going to blame Caleb Williams, but he's a rookie quarterback. The coach needs to be the adult in the room, and the coach needs to just call a timeout and figure it out from there. When it hit 20 seconds, the fact that it went from 36 seconds down to run out is malpractice. And as soon as they got the number 1 pick and they were going to draft Caleb Williams, they should have fired Eberflus, because I don't think a defensive head coach is the right guy to lead, or to be the guy to be the guy to lead a quarterback. And I'm not saying, look, Caleb Williams I think is overrated. I think for all the hype that he came into the league with, I don't think he's that good, that good in terms of the hype. But he was kind of put at a disadvantage because of who the head coach was. Eberflus is not a good head coach. I've been saying that for a long time. I've said that for a couple of years now, and he should have been fired in the offseason. So and I said it coming into the year, the Bears were going to be terrible this year, be bad this year. And yeah, they started off pretty good, but ever since that Hail Mary against Washington, they haven't won a game. I think they're 0-6 since then. So the Bears are getting what they deserve, but I think the Bears ending was worse.
I haven't seen the Raiders ending, but I would say the Bears ending is worse purely because of how, just like you said, how just absolute malpractice it was, the management of the time, the management with the timeout. You can put it on Caleb Williams, but there's been a lot of very valid points made that is what you have a head coach there for. They're the ones who should be looking up at that clock, realizing everything within a circumstance. Somebody should be in his headset saying, call a timeout, call a timeout. And the fact that he stood by it and then went to his presser and got fired a couple hours after it, just all goes to show the Bears had lost all respect and faith in him as well, if there was any there in the first place. So I would say the Bears collapsed first, because the last 4 weeks have been really, really bad Bears losses. There was like the blocked field goal, which it is what it is, but it never happens anymore. So to have it happen to you just is a sign of the times for the Bears. Like you said, the Hail Mary with just not being positioned properly and Stevenson dancing around. Then you have this clock malpractice. But from a Caleb Williams standpoint, like, the stats are starting to line up. As soon as they moved off this offensive coordinator, Caleb Williams has turned a corner. So they may have something in this offensive coordinator for maybe their future coach. We'll have to see how things go for the rest of the season. But I'll say the Bears until I see the Raiders. But the Bears have just had too much not go their way that I got to hold with the Bears.
Tech Quentin asks, who's going to spy Lamar? This is something that we will get into. I don't know. I mean, this is a game where I think, you could use – I mean, it's tough because you need them to rush the passer, especially with no BG, but like Nolan Smith's athletic ability, maybe Nakobe Dean. Look, you're not going to be able to stop Lamar. Lamar's going to get his yards. Lamar's going to make his plays. You just have to keep them to a minimum. You don't want him running up and down the field on you. You don't want the receiver. And I don't think the receivers are going to be running wide open. I mean, that's how good the secondary is for the Eagles with Quinyon and Isaiah Rodgers is going to be starting. Darius Slay's out, and with Cooper DeJean in the slot. Like, it's going to come down to stopping the run game, in the RPO, whatever they do when it comes to Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, Patrick Ricard. Like, it's going to be stopping that trio. If you can stop them, you have a chance to win the game. I don't know how you're going to spy them. Maybe, as Party on Broad says, you use a 5-man front. Jordan Davis is going to play huge this game. I think this is going to be this type of game is going to be the game why you drafted him. And I know that was 3 years ago, and he hasn't, lived up to that first round billing or top 15 billing wherever he was drafted. But, him, Jalen Carter, who's been a problem all year. He's been double teamed a lot. Milton Williams, who had a couple of sacks last week. Josh Sweat's going to have to play big. Josh Sweat, the one thing that annoys me about Josh Sweat is he likes to crash. You cannot do that against Lamar, because if you give him the outside, he is gone. Also, if you're an edge, don't go past him. Because if you go past him, he can step up and then run to the outside. So you want to. This is what the Eagles back in the early 2000s, Jim Johnson used to do against Michael Vick, prime Mike Vick. You want to force him to go to one side, and you never want to rush past him, because if you rush past him, he's going to just step up in the pocket and run to the outside and take off. Lamar will do the same thing. Lamar's a better passer than Michael Vick, though. So you do still have to worry about that portion, but you don't want him to beat you with the legs. You force him to – it's easier said than done, but force Lamar to beat you with his arm. He can do it. He absolutely can do it. But I trust our secondary against their receivers more than I would trust, if you're going to play man and you have your backs turned to Lamar, Lamar's just going to take off and run. So that's how I kind of would at least start out, and obviously make adjustments from there, which Vic Fangio has done an absolutely great job of this year. First couple of drives, the opposing offense, they'll get yards, they'll get down the field, they may get some points, but then he makes some great adjustments, and then the defense, it lights out the rest of the game.
Yeah, I mean, you said a lot of great points, and it's 100% true. It's going to have to be a fundamentally and technically sound game by that front four, front five, whatever we're going to end up using, and the linebackers, and keeping the game in front of them and making the plays that are in front of them. So it'll be really interesting to see, because we haven't necessarily been the most fundamentally sound when it comes to like the edge rushers, especially because this is the first game without Brandon Graham. So we don't really know what life without our best edge rusher this year is going to be like. And our first matchup is one that's going to be incredibly hard, and one that's really going to show how hard things might get without Brandon Graham around. It'll be interesting to see. Like you said, try and make him beat you with his arm. They do rank number 3 as a passing offense, but they rank 28th in attempts. So there is they're very sound when it comes to that, and consistent when it comes to that, because they haven't had to throw the football a whole lot. Like you said, Lamar Jackson can absolutely still beat you. That stat is not to say he can't beat you through the air. It's just to say if you make him throw the ball more, it brings him out of the comfort zone that the Ravens have established in their offense, and that could ultimately lead to an advantage for the Eagles. But that's a huge, big if and but to keeping Lamar Jackson in the pocket and forcing him to throw when you're missing Brandon Graham. The front four the edges haven't ultimately been great this season. So you're definitely going to need to, like Party on Broad said, maybe use a 5-man front, maybe get a little bit of help from the linebackers, but it'll be interesting to watch, because the Ravens offensively are extremely well-rounded. They rank number 2 in rushing, number 3 in passing, number 1 in total offensive yards, and number 2 in total points for. It's going to be a real test for the Philadelphia Eagles. As much as, Party on Broad said earlier that he gives the edge to the Eagles on defense, we definitely have the better defense, but it's going to be put to its truest test yet this season with the Baltimore Ravens.
Oh, yeah, easily this is the best offense the Eagles defense has played. We did say the same thing about when we faced Washington and Jaden Daniels, and they dominated that game. I'm going to be intrigued with what the Eagles offense does if Baltimore slows. I don't think they're going to shut Saquon down, especially with our offensive line, but slows Saquon down. Can Jalen throw the ball? And this is, and I mentioned it, this isn't a great set. Marlon Humphrey is good. Kyle Hamilton is decent, but like with AJ Brown and Devontae Smith could potentially be playing. Now, will he be 100% is going to be the big question. So will Jalen Hurts be able to throw the Eagles down the field? We know that they can run the football with the best of them, and they're not going to give up on the run. Talk about a lot where early in the game, Saquon's going to have a bunch of 2, 3, 4, 5-yard runs. Remember, first play of the second half last week, 70-yard touchdown run. The Eagles' offensive line is so big and bruising that they're going to wear down, or they have so far this year, wear down opposing defensive lines. Will they be able to do that against this Ravens front? It's not going to be easy. Nnamdi Madubuike is really good. Travis Jones, Broderick Washington. They played at 3-4, so those front three. Be interesting to see if Van Noy is going to play. He is doubtful, but he's somebody that can get after the quarterback. Roquan Smith is back, so at the linebacker position, that could help. That will help the Ravens in terms of trying to slow down Saquon Barkley, because we know what type of menace he is, going from sideline to sideline and making tackles. He's one of the leading tacklers in the league. But I mean, that's going to be a great battle, strength on strength. Eagles offensive line against the Ravens defensive line.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Like, I know that, the defensive line is amazing. I remember when Travis Jones was coming out and being like, man, I would love him to be with the Philadelphia Eagles because he was such a freak. And Nnamdi Madubuike as well, really great. It's definitely going to be interesting because you have a lot of really, from a statistical standpoint, strengths versus strengths and weakness versus weaknesses that are going to be interesting to see. We haven't really, since we started this streak, had to watch Jalen Hurts use his arm. But I think just as much as we want Lamar Jackson to have to use his arm, Jalen Hurts, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to make Jalen Hurts have to throw the football but the thing is, they have a weakness in their secondary. Their secondary ranks 31st in yards allowed. They're one of the worst. Teams throw at one of the highest rates against them. But it'll be interesting because Jalen Hurts isn't. We've seen some of Jalen Hurts' worst games come when he's forced to throw the ball 30 plus times a game. We've watched it. We've come on this show and been so frustrated by how often they threw the ball and how much they abandoned the run. And I hope that Kellen Moore doesn't abandon the run because the Ravens are a stout defense. They rank number 2 against rushing in the NFL right now. They are one of the best, and just so happens to be so are the Eagles. So it'll be really interesting to see if what they do and if they're able, like which team will maybe potentially back off the run first, because you have to think and feel that eventually the run just isn't going to work when the points start going up on the board. Somebody's going to probably have to abandon that run or consider doing something different with the run. But there's a reason this is kind of like a Super Bowl matchup. It's a humongous prove-it game. The Ravens, I think, over the last couple of weeks have struggled a little bit. They lost to the Steelers. They had a couple. Their games haven't been the greatest. But the Eagles, of course, the strength of schedule has come into major question. We beat the Commanders, who have now lost 3 in a row. So now, of course, people are looking back and saying, so how important was that Eagles win beyond the importance to the NFC East? What did it actually prove? Then we went into the LA Rams where we were on upset alert and we beat them. And I called them a middling team from the beginning, but now others are looking at it like, well, are the Rams that good? So now this is a huge prove-it game for the Eagles. They have to come out and the defense has to stand up with being, a top 3 defense. They have to prove it. They can't let the Ravens, even though they're the number 1 offense, just run all over them and pass all over them and just put a ton of points up. This is a huge prove-it game. And I think it's also going to be a huge prove-it game for the Eagles offense because they've been able to lean into Saquon Barkley so much. And I just don't necessarily believe they're going to be able to. They're going to have to show that this is a well-rounded team. And there's so many comments right now. But at one point within the comments, I'm looking at it now. Here, Jazz Fusion says, do you trust your secondary against Henry? They like to throw shoulders. Good luck with that. And he also pointed out, like both tight ends against our coverages. Let's be honest. First of all, Jazz Fusion, don't sit there and pretend like the Eagles don't have just as many weapons on the offensive side of the ball as the Ravens do. These are 2 teams who are absolutely stacked offensively. You can go and you can go pound for pound and name and say, like you said at the outset, Barkley and Henry, probably a wash. Look at the tight ends, I'd probably give the edge to Andrews a bit. When you look at the wide receivers, I give the edge to the Eagles. So, and then when you look at the quarterback, you give the edge goes, I think, kind of significantly towards Lamar Jackson. But when you level that, and then the offensive line, the Ravens have a good offensive line. Of course, like we said on the episode on Monday, a lot of offensive lines can look really good when they don't have to throw the ball a lot, and they're throwing the ball at the fourth lowest rate in the NFL. So when you're running the ball at the fourth highest rate in the NFL, of course, the offensive lines are going to look really good. But at the end of the day, the Eagles' offensive line is definitely takes the advantage there. So when you go down the entire chart, it was a perfect split in either direction. Some, there's a bit more of an advantage. Others, there's a bit less of an advantage, but it's almost even down the board. So to just pretend like there's a discount on the Eagles' weapons, there definitely isn't. These are two teams who are absolutely stacked with offensive weapons.
Yeah, they are, and they're very, very even as well. You mentioned it. We did it offensively. You look on the defensive side of the football. The Eagles have a better secondary. The Ravens have a better line, probably better. While I think Roquan Smith is the best linebacker of both teams, I think as groups they're even. Just the way Ball and Nakobe Dean are playing, and the defensive fronts again. Jalen Carter, really, really good. Matabuki, really, really good. So they're just really even all over the place. You go to special teams. Tucker's the GOAT, but the way he has been kicking lately, even the way Elliott has been kicking lately, I mean, looking at right now, not historically, obviously historically, Tucker's better, but I think right now they're probably on par. They're probably even. So, looking at numbers, looking at the rosters, it's a very even team. It's going to come down to, Party on Broad had mentioned, let me find it real quick. There really have been a lot of I feel like the Eagles have to get their head out of their ass in the first half this week. They must score 1 to 2 times their first possessions and set the tone. Zero room for error. It's very true, because if you get down to Baltimore 14-0, they'll be able to lean on Henry and do what the Eagles have done to other teams. Impose your will. But again, I think the Eagles are also a different monster. Where if they get down 14-0, they're not going to. You talked about not abandoning the run. In previous years, they did, but they also didn't have Saquon Barkley, and B. Kellen Moore wasn't calling the plays. This year, they haven't had to abandon the run because again, on a 7-game winning streak, they've just been winning games. The Tampa game, which was the only game they really got blown out in this year. The first play of the second half, Saquon went for 50, I think, something like that. And they just weren't able to keep up that. But that was a different team week 4, I think it was, right before the bye. It's to where they are now. So the only thing that they're not doing is scoring early. And they got fortunate last week when going up against a Rams team that was the only team that was worse than the Eagles in scoring early. But Baltimore has the ability to jump out in front of you. And again, when you have that playmaker at quarterback that they do with Lamar Jackson, he can make anything happen. Again, when it comes to our secondary against their receivers, I have complete faith in our secondary, not shutting them down and completely taking, Quinion probably taking out whoever he is, because that's pretty much what he has done all season. But who's going to cover Isaiah Likely? Who's going to – Mark Andrews has been really coming along. I love when Nakobe Dean comes downfield, he's going at the line of scrimmage, but when he has to go backwards and cover somebody, that's a problem. So we'll see if he's able to do that. Not having Brandon Graham this week is huge, because Brandon Graham plays the run, gets after the quarterback. He's that emotional leader on the field. Who is going to take that up? Who is going to step up for the Eagles in that matter? Charles Harris, who they claimed off waivers from the Panthers, he's probably going to play, but he's not going to know the entire defense. So, maybe have him go out there and play the Bryce Huff role for this week and maybe next week as he's learning the defense. Just get after the quarterback. And again, I'm not saying he's going to go out there and dominate. Whoever he's going to be going up against on the offensive line, whether that be Ronnie Stanley or Roger Rosengarten, the tackles for Baltimore. But got to find a way to put pressure and make Lamar uncomfortable. Very hard. Again, he's won 2 MVPs, and this might be his best year that he's had. Just the way he's throwing the football, the way he's commanding the games, and it helps. Just like having Saquon has helped Jalen Hurts, having Derrick Henry has made life a lot easier for Lamar, because a lot of the times in previous years it was, all right, if Lamar isn't going to throw, he's going to take off and run. They had Justice Hill, they had J.K. Dobbins, they had Gus Edwards, but now you have King Henry. Like, good luck trying to tackle him when you have Ricard blocking for him, a 300-pound fullback blocking for a 250 whatever pound running back that Henry is. That makes a big difference. Just like for the Eagles, like in previous years, we had DeAndre Swift, we had Miles Sanders, but Saquon Barkley in 11 games already has more yards than he's ever had in a season in his career. He is dominating the way he had always anticipated dominating coming out of college. So both of these quarterbacks kind of have insurance policies to where they're able to kind of take a load off of themselves. It's not. I fully believe that Lamar, if Derrick Henry got completely shut down in the game, Lamar could win a game by himself. That question comes, can Jalen do that? We've seen him do it in the past, but when you're going to go up against the defense like you're going to go up against this week in Baltimore, will he be able to do that? You mentioned how the Ravens are number 2 against the run. I don't think they're going to stop Saquon. Like, they're not going to keep Saquon to 10, 15, 20 yards. Will he get 100? Probably not. But will the Eagles be able to use the run game or the threat of a run game to get the pass game open? I don't know I don't think anybody in the Ravens secondary is going to be able to stop A.J. Brown. Now it's going to be up to Jalen Hurts to get him the ball. He did it against, like, A.J. had the most quietest 100-yard game last week. It didn't feel like he had 100, but he finished with over 100 yards. In 8 games, he's got over 700 yards receiving or something like that. Like, he is having such a really good season, but it's he missed 3 games, and he's being overshadowed by by Saquon because of the MVP like season that he is having right now. But you cannot like, if the Ravens want to put 8 in the box and leave Marlon Humphrey and who's their other corner? Nate Wiggins, who I loved coming out the draft, by the way. That's going to be great. Like, it should be a great matchup with A.J. Brown and Devontae, who's probably not going to be 100%, but I think is going to play against Marlon and Nate Wiggins. Like, one-on-one, I don't know if anybody can stop A.J. Brown. So I love that matchup, and Jalen just has to be able to get him the ball and allow him to work in space.
Yeah, I'm going to go back to the early start thing. I think that, and then I'll get to some of the other points. I think that is huge. I think that's absolutely instrumental that the Eagles have to come out and they have to put points up on the board early. I know in the past, a lot of people have been like, oh, well, it's been an overreaction because look at what they do in the second half. I don't believe that in this circumstance, because while you say they may not necessarily abandon the run, they definitely have to move away from the run if they ultimately end up down 10-0 or 14-0. They're not going to be able to lean into it completely and with all the faith in the world when they know they have to start moving the ball and being able to put up points. So it's really going to be interesting to see if we can put points up on the board early, because, as good as both of these defenses are in their own rights, I ultimately am of the belief this is going to come down to the offenses. If it could come down to one of those defenses making the biggest stop and the most important stop, I absolutely agree with that. But at the end of the day, I think it's definitely going to be about which offense is going to be able to just put up the points necessary to beat another team that's going to put up a ton of points as well. So ultimately, I don't think this is going to come down to 2 great defenses making it a 21-14 game or 21-17 game. I think both of these team offenses very likely could put up over 30 points. And it's not to say that either of these defenses aren't good. It's just that these offenses are that legit, and they're going to be forced to have to go pound for pound and put points up on the board. and put the defenses on their heels. And I definitely don't think that the Eagles defense has faced someone, like you said, like Derrick Henry, who can really, put a bruising in and wear you down. Like, we haven't had a team that, this could be a possession game as well, where the team that ultimately controls possession is going to ultimately win this game, because it's going to be about the points, but it's also going to be about what offense can just keep the ball out of the other team's hands as much as they can. And both of these teams are fully capable of doing it. This wouldn't be a potential Super Bowl matchup, or we wouldn't be talking about it in that way if it wasn't two of the best teams at what they do. You can discount certain things, because I've seen some of the comments flying around. You can definitely discount some of the things for both teams. And you can sit there and say, oh, somebody's banged up. There's guys banged up on both sides of the ball all over the place. But I definitely agree on the sentiment also of A.J. Brown. Is there someone in that secondary that can cover A.J. Brown one-on-one and make his day that hard that he's not going to put up 100 points? I don't think so. I think he'll definitely put up 100 yards. Sorry. I think he'll definitely put up 100 yards. He's been quietly doing it all season. And I'm sure he's not 100% and he's still somewhat banged up as well. But it's going to be such a good game. Like, you just can't, there's so much being said in the comments. It's hilarious. It just everybody trying to discount the other team. Both teams are really good. This is going to be a really good game. I would be absolutely mind blown if one of these teams completely ran away with the game. Like, it would definitely say a lot about about the team that gets completely blown out if that happens. I would be shocked. So I don't imagine that happening, but if it does happen, it would definitely be the national media and local medias will absolutely open up on whatever team took the beat down. But I'd be shocked. I just can't see it. And it's going to be a really good game.
Oh, yeah. And imagine, like, Lamar is 23-1 against the NFC. His only loss being to the Giants, which I keep saying that, and it's just weird that that's the team that beat Lamar. And the Ravens. I think Party on Broad had mentioned we're all talking about this potentially being a high-scoring game. Watch it be a low, hard-fought, like defensive battle, old school, 3 yards in the cloud of dust type of game, where both teams are just trying to run it and the passing games can't get going. But like you said, I expect points to be flying. I expect teams to be going up and down the field. It should just be a great atmosphere. Somebody asked why it couldn't be flexed. CBS protected this game. Like, there's no way they weren't protecting this game. They didn't want to lose it. I do think later in the season, if Washington can turn things around, the Eagles-Commanders game could potentially get flexed. I think that's a 1:00 game right now, but that could potentially get flexed to 4:00 Sunday night game. Now they can flex to Thursday and Monday. So who the hell knows what's going to happen? The Eagles already had a Sunday night game flexed when they were supposed to face the Jaguars on Sunday Night Football. I do agree. 4:25 is like, I want a 1:00 game. Give me 1:00 all day. I want the earlier games, get it out the way, and then just be mad the rest of the day, whatever, or enjoy football the rest of the day.
It might be the only point everyone will agree with Jazz Fusion on in this chat is that 4:25 is definitely late enough because
I don't like those night games.
It's I mean with a young baby like I have, sometimes you're stuck up there and you're sitting there watching the game anyway, so it doesn't matter. But yeah, 4:25 is definitely late enough. I mean, I enjoy sometimes having those 9:00 games, but yeah. I'm good at
looking right now, the weather in Baltimore for Sunday is 41. No, it looks like no precipitation at this time, so might be a little bit windy, but like the weather shouldn't be an issue on Sunday, so that's good. Like, it'll be cool. It'll be cold because it'll be getting close. Be at night, so. Oh man, it's going to be a fun matchup. Like, just get us to 4:25 now, Sunday, and let's kick this thing off and see. see, the Eagles have won, if I'm not mistaken. They lost to the Jets last year, obviously, but I feel like over the in Nick Sirianni's tenure, they may have only lost one or two games against the AFC. I'm not 100% sure. I have to look that up, but the Eagles have been really good. Not this obviously discounting the Super Bowl against the Chiefs. The Eagles have been very, very good against the AFC as well. And John Harbaugh going up against the team he used to coach with, but he's been in Baltimore for damn near 20 years now. It feels like.
Yeah. Him and Mike Tomlin may have the best job security out there. Like they're just able to. Well, okay, Tomlin, he's a really good coach, but he's very good at getting 9 and 8 teams. So sometimes I question why his tenure was long, but the Ravens, man, it feels like they're constantly just rolling over into the next.
The only thing they can't do is win. Like they have trouble winning in the playoffs. The one thing that Lamar needs to get off of his shoulders is win in the playoffs and get to a Super Bowl. It's the one thing he hasn't done yet.
There's the two. I think the two biggest storylines that need to be shaken is the Dolphins / Tua in the cold. They definitely need to finally prove that they can win in the cold, and they really can. And then, Lamar Jackson winning those key games and making it to the Super Bowl. I'm sure that Jazz Fusion is going to go in there and try and point out some big games that he won to get them to the next round of the playoffs. But it's the Super Bowl. Get into the Super Bowl and then get into that game and win in that game.
It's unfortunate for him that he's got Pat Mahomes over in the AFC and Josh Allen's also in the AFC, and he had Tom Brady. I forget how long Tom Brady was also there towards the back end of his career, like in the beginning of Lamar's career. So again, I'm a huge Lamar Jackson fan. I loved Lamar coming out of Louisville when he got drafted, and a lot of people were skeptical of what type of quarterback he could be. But this week I don't want him to win. This week, obviously, I don't want him to be successful. But I love watching Lamar play. Just what he's able to do out there on the football field, not many people can do. We saw it with Michael Vick, early. Now I was too young, but like the early '90s with Randall Cunningham, just being able to see those type of players out there. Donovan McNabb now, obviously, different type of quarterback. He's not as fast as Lamar was, and I think Donovan is a better passer than Lamar. But just being able to see these type of quarterbacks out there succeed, I love it. I love watching them play on a weekly basis.
This episode is brought to you by Etsy.
Oh.
Hear that?
Okay. Thank you.
Etsy knows these aren't the sounds of holiday gifting. Well, not the ones you're hoping for. You want squeals of delight. Happy tears.
How did you?
And spontaneously written songs of joy.
I am so happy. Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah.
Okay, the song needs a bit of work, but anyway, to get those reactions, make sure everyone on your list feels heard with handmade, handpicked, and designed gifts from small shops on Etsy. Gifts like personalized jewelry, custom artwork, cozy style items, vintage pieces, and home decor to celebrate all of your favorite people and their specific kind of special. For original gifts that say, I get you, Etsy has it.
Black Friday is coming, and for the adults in your life who love the coolest toys, well, there's something for them this year too. Bartesian is the premier craft cocktail maker that automatically makes more than 60 seasonal and classic cocktails, each in under 30 seconds at the push of a button. And right now, Bartesian is having a huge site-wide sale. You can get $100 off any cocktail maker or cocktail maker bundle when you spend $400 or more. So, if the cocktail lover in your life has been good this year, or the right kind of bad, get them Bartesian. At the push of a button, make bar-quality cosmopolitans, martinis, Manhattans, and more. All in just 30 seconds. All for $100 off. Amazing toys aren't just for kids. Get $100 off a cocktail maker when you spend $400 through Cyber Monday. Visit bartesian.com/cocktail. That's BARTESIAN.com/cocktail.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I'm watching some of the comments, tons of comments. Ben Van Sumeren out for the season. He suffered a knee injury in practice today. Van Sumeren has been vital to the Eagles dominating second halves this season. He's been a huge as a fullback, and he's been huge for special teams. Like, you can't discount how important. Now, how important are the punting units going to be in this game? I don't think they're going to be out there very much. So it'll be more about like. Yeah, so it'll be, but the field goal kickers and stuff, they may be out there a lot. So we may need to see Tucker and Elliott turn their seasons around. This would be the game not to go missing even any field goal, to be honest. And Jake Elliott, it would be nice to see him hit a 50-plus yard field goal because he hasn't yet this season. He's 0 for 4 or 0 for 5. Yeah. So it's time to get that monkey off your back as well. But yeah. It's gonna be a good game. I just can't wait to get to the game. Like, you can sit there and you can really pick into each team and say, we know what weaknesses are on each side of the ball, but there's so many strengths that can overcome those weaknesses that, ultimately for the Ravens, it's going to be about likely getting that stop against a pass. And for the Eagles, it's going to be about getting that stop where Lamar Jackson doesn't get out of the pocket and make magic happen. And you're put in the front four, which beyond Jalen Carter have not been has been one of the biggest concerns for the Eagles, is going to continue to be a major concern. And this is one of the games you don't want it to be a major concern. And then for the Ravens, as much as some of the comments have been out there that they seem pretty confident that Jalen Hurts won't throw a good enough ball for his receivers, he's been throwing a good enough ball for most of this season for his receivers. He puts it where only he knows his receivers are going to get it, and only where he knows his receivers are going to make a play. But it's definitely going to come down to it feels like it's going to come down to one of those weaknesses. Play through the air for the Eagles, or back-breaking play on the ground that Lamar Jackson makes complete magic happen late in the game that the front four had no chance of stopping, or had a chance to stop and he made magic happen. It just feels like one of those two things is just bound to happen based on the weaknesses that rest within these teams.
Yeah, and look, the Eagles aren't going to win out. They're going to lose a game, and if they are going to lose a game, this would be the game to lose, being that it's an it's an out-of-conference opponent. You don't want to lose any NFC games just in case, the Lions are hopefully lose another 2 games. I know they still have Green Bay. They have the Bills, which again, that's an out-of-conference opponent. They have San Francisco, just to name a few. So hopefully, if this would be the game, I would say that I would prefer the Eagles to lose. I don't want them losing to obviously the Panthers next week, or Washington. It's crazy. The Eagles have 2 road games left, and we mentioned it last week was the last time they're on a plane until potentially going to the NFC Championship game if they have to go to Detroit, or the Super Bowl if they get the number 1 seed and end up winning the divisional matchup and the NFC Championship game before flying to New Orleans. They take the train to Baltimore. They take the train to DC, and then they have Carolina, the Steelers, Dallas, and the Giants all at home. That's all. Like we talked about the schedule at the beginning of the year. It's like the way all these a Friday night game and a Monday night game and on that and all this, and then they barely played at home. They barely played at home the first half of the year, but now nothing but home games pretty much. Like, they're not going to overtake Baltimore Stadium. There'll be a bunch of Eagles fans there, but they're not going to overtake it like they did LA last week. They'll overtake Washington because that stadium's a crap hole and Eagles fans travel well. Nobody's going to overtake the Link. So it's going to feel like of these last 6 games, 5 of them are going to feel, 4 of them are true home games, and the 5th one, the Washington game, is going to feel like a home game. So the Eagles, this feels a lot different than last year's 10-1. When we were 10-1, is at this point where the downhill started. I don't see that happening. This team feels different. It helps that when you have the experienced coordinators, you don't have the crap that we had last week. And it helps when you can just hand the ball off to Saquon and he can make something happen. So not looking past this Baltimore game at all, but I like how the schedule sets up going towards the playoffs for the Eagles, but taking it one game at a time. Let's see what happens this week in Baltimore. Should be
definitely we got to take it one game at a time, and let's be realistic. We've talked about it almost every single week. We've even, like you even predicted a loss last week. We know that we're not getting to the end of this season without another loss. Or, I mean, it definitely doesn't feel realistic to expect we won't. You know, you have that week 18 where you're likely going to rest starters depending on, you know, what outcome you need. We got the Steelers coming up. We got the Ravens coming up. We got, you know, the Dallas Cowboys, who may or may not be somewhat rejuvenated. But the Dallas Cowboys, still those having 3 divisional matchups are huge. But yeah, I mean, obviously I want to see this win. This is an important W to prove some doubters wrong based on things that, you know, based on this stretch that the Eagles have had. But it's not the end of the world if it's a loss. And if it's a respectable loss at the end of the day too. If you go out there and you get destroyed by the Ravens, then every question mark we thought went away is going to come right back. But I agree with you, LJ. I feel different about this team. There's so many things that have worked differently this year that haven't in the past. The secondary looks the best it's been in years. I mean, when you look at the running game, best it's been in years. The offensive line, you know, obviously peak form every single year, always looking great. Even it looks like Jalen Hurts is finally moving in this offense. It looks like he's comfortable in this offense. It's just going to be interesting to see throughout the game what is ultimately going to end up happening. And is he going to have to throw the ball? Is he going to be able to make the right decisions and not make mistakes? Because let's not forget, I'm not completely forgetting deep in my mind that Jalen Hurts was averaging 2 turnovers a game for the first 4 weeks of the season. I'm not forgetting and saying that Jalen Hurts can't do that again. I don't want to see it. I don't want to speak it into existence, but we know that Jalen Hurts, if forced to make decisions and throw the ball over and over again, even throwing the ball minimally can make some bad decisions, especially running too. It scares me running because this team is going to go for the ball. They're going to go for the tackle, but they're going to go for the ball and try and force turnovers. Ultimately, you know, winning the turnover battle is probably going to be a big part of this game too. There's so many different elements that are going to be huge, and you're going to look back and see these different elements of the game and that we talked about, and one team's going to dominate more of them. Maybe not dominate, but win more of them.
Yeah, just get us to 425. All right, so before we get to our player of the games and keys to the game and prediction, we got to do our unheralded player of the week for week 12 in the NFL. We're not looking for, you know, Saquon's 300 total yards of offense game or you know, Derrick Henry's 140 or 150 yards rushing from last week. We want somebody under the radar. Do you have your guy, Connor?
I did not come prepared for this, so you fire away.
I'm going to go with Chig Okonkwo. He only had 1 catch, but it was the game-winning touchdown for Tennessee over Houston, a 70-yard touchdown early in the with about 9.5 minutes to go in the fourth quarter. He burnt the secondary, burnt Stingley, if I'm not mistaken, for Houston, and took it 70 yards as the Titans defeated the Texans 32-27. And the Texans are such a weird team. Like they had such high hopes, high aspirations coming into this year, and who the hell knows what's going on with them. But I'm going to take Chig Okonkwo from the Tennessee Titans.
I am going to go with Bucky Irvin of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They've been fairly inconsistent in their running game. But, you know, in the NFC South, the win's a win. You need to get that win because I think the lead-in division is 6-5 and the Buccaneers are 5-6. And there's just something about, you know, Baker Mayfield that makes you want to cheer for him to win and just to get to the playoffs, not to face us, but just to get to the playoffs. Like he's been such a feel-good story. Tom Brady departs Tampa Bay. Baker Mayfield gets a second opportunity, and here he is winning games. And I mean, he was pretty aggressive with the Tommy DeVito celebration. I won't lie. But yeah, I'm going with Bucky Irvin in this one. He went 12 carries, 88 yards for a touchdown. And then the Buccaneers just completely destroyed the New York Giants 30-7. So
how many times did I practice saying that name? I didn't need to practice it. I'm good with names. I did broadcast football and basketball games when I was in college, so I just needed to look at it once, and I was good to go when it came to Chig Okonkwo.
I agree with Carlos. I mentioned that earlier in the episode that we definitely need to win the time of possession game.
I think it's safe to say, though, that the Birds are going to win this weekend.
Well,
just saying.
I mean, I feel like I'm feeling pretty good, but I mean, let's just get into our.
I said the
Birds.
The Birds. I didn't say which bird.
Oh,
I just said the Birds.
A bird, yeah, that's true. It doesn't matter. Our prediction doesn't matter. Let's just pick a bird to win.
Party on broadcast. LJ was right about the Sixers. I'm always right when it comes to that crap basketball team. I haven't been wrong in 10 years. Yes, all right, go ahead. Connor, you're a player of the game. Means some keys to the game for this Sunday's matchup between the Eagles and Ravens.
Well, we've named so many damn keys. It's crazy. But the Eagles have to control possession. They have to keep the ball out of Lamar Jackson and that offense's hands, because no matter how much confidence, no matter how much faith I have in this defense, at the end of the day, it's against Lamar Jackson. He makes things happen, and they are putting points up and yards up at an exceptional rate. So as confident as and as much as I love this defense and do not think that it is fake or that they are fake or they're a mirage over these past few weeks in the competition, I do think it's important that the less time they need to be facing Lamar Jackson, the better, because it's the less points that are going to go up on the board for the Purple Birds, the Ravens. For offensively though, I'm going with Jalen Hurts. I think ultimately it's going to come down to how he protects the ball. And when he's asked to throw the ball and go to the air and put points up on the board and make things happen, he has to make things happen. We rank 16th in red zone percentage. We're a middling red zone team. We've missed field goals. We've gone for it on fourth downs. We've failed. We've left so many points on the board in the red zone. We need to put up points in the red zone as well. Another key, possession and red zone. The Eagles need to control both of those. And it's not going to be an easy task because I think the Ravens are number 1 or number 2 in the red zone. So we need to be the Ravens in the red zone and putting up points and making sure that, don't get fancy with some of the play calling. If it's a close game and you need the points, don't go for a 4th and 4 or a 4th and 3 in the red zone necessarily. Take the points, make the smart decisions. So this is also like Nick Sirianni. Don't try and steal the thunder of a big game by trying to make some crazy game decisions. That's a big one too. So defensively, oh boy, there are so many different elements to the defense. It's crazy that could be in play. But I am going to go with Cooper DeJean. I think Cooper DeJean in the slot, in that nickel role, is going to be tasked at times or be put in a situation where he's faced with Derrick Henry, Mark Andrews, Zay Flowers. He could get a multitude of different players and coming at him, and he's going to have to make stops. He's going to have to make plays. I wanted to say Kenyon Mitchell as well. I think it's going to be important that the cornerbacks be on point and that their coverage be extremely on point and being able to, make sure that there's no openings. Make Lamar Jackson have to use his legs. Make them have to turn to Derrick Henry. And hopefully that's enough that the Eagles can make those stops up front as well. But I have a lot more faith in the secondary than I do the front 4, 5, 6, whatever we're going to use up there. But I'm going Cooper DeJean. And then, of course, the defensive keys to the game. We've spoke about so many different defensive keys to the game. You just try and make Lamar Jackson throw the ball. I think, they're one of the top passing offenses right now. But try not to let him make magic. Try to just make him become a pocket quarterback like we know he is not a perfect pocket quarterback. And hopefully if you make him do that on a couple key points in possessions, it'll be enough to give you that win from a possession standpoint.
So before I get to mine, Jack said, I know this won't be popular, but the NBA is a shit product to me. That is popular opinion because the NBA sucks. It's the worst of the 4 major pro leagues. It's awful. It's an awful product. College basketball is 1,000 times better than the NBA. The NBA is a terrible, terrible, terrible product, and nobody will ever – it hasn't been good since the 90s, and nobody will ever be able to convince me otherwise. So, yes, the NBA sucks. It's terrible. Party on Broad says, I don't think I'll be able to control my emotions if Kyle Hamilton goes off and Jordan Davis is a 0 on Sunday. I always said that that was the wrong pick, and I hope I look like an idiot. And the Eagles jumped ahead of Baltimore because the thought was the Baltimore wanted to take Jordan Davis, and then they ended up taking Kyle Hamilton.
Are we talking Jordan Davis on this pick?
Yeah.
Okay.
He said Jordan Davis. I said Jordan Davis.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
Yeah, Jordan Davis. So, yeah, I mean, granted, they play 2 totally different positions, so it's tough to quantify. Like, obviously, if Kyle Hamilton goes out there and has 3 interceptions and 2 sacks, and it's easy to quantify that. But like, just it'll be interesting to see, like, when you're watching the game, the impact that each player does without looking at numbers and just seeing which one is more of an impactful player. But
there's a good chance that Jordan Davis ends up with a 0, but if he has any type of impact against the run, that's win enough, because obviously we need to be able to stop the run. It's going to be one of the biggest keys for the defense. But yeah, I think that's a pick that will probably live in infamy for us for a while, no matter what Jordan Davis does.
Yeah. The Birds passed on Lamar his draft year. Well, we had Carson Wentz, so we didn't really need a quarterback because it was he got drafted the year after the Eagles won the Super Bowl. So we didn't pass on him per se. We weren't in need of a quarterback at the time, so it wouldn't have made sense for the Eagles to draft Lamar in the first round after having Carson and moving up and then signing him to a contract. It was with the Eagles pick. The Eagles traded that pick to Baltimore, but I don't consider that the Eagles passing on him. Again, just at the time, looking at the situation, the Eagles had just won the Super Bowl. The Eagles had Carson Wentz, and so we didn't know. Hindsight being 2020, obviously you can be like, they probably should have drafted Lamar. But we didn't think that Carson was going to lose his mental and not be able to survive in Philly at the time. And I'm a big Lamar fan. I love Lamar Jackson. I've said it time and time again. I loved him when he got drafted. No, that made sense to an extent. It wasn't a first rounder, and B, we saw what happened when we had Josh McCown come into a playoff game. Like, we didn't have a legit backup. I was shocked when we took Jalen, but I was, again, a big Jalen fan in college. I loved him at Alabama. So I wasn't mad per se. I was just maybe confused, but I wasn't mad because I was a big Jalen fan in college at Alabama. All right. So my offensive player of the game, I'm going to go A.J. Brown. I don't think that the Ravens are going to stop Saquon. I don't think Saquon is going to go off for 150 yards. I can see him going for 75 and a touchdown. I can see him being contained a little bit, but I don't see him going off like he did, like he has been going off. But A.J. Brown, him against Nate Wiggins, him against Marlon Humphrey, I love him against either of those cornerbacks. It's going to come down to your offensive player of the game getting him the ball in the right spots. So if Jalen can get AJ the ball in space, we see what he does in the open field. So I'm going to go AJ Brown. It wouldn't shock me if he went for 100 again. And you mentioned time of possession, but also starting quickly, getting points on the board early, and not turning the ball over is going to be key. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm going to go 2 players because I'm not 100% sure which one it's going to be. Nakobe Dean and Nolan Smith. I'm not saying they're going to spy Lamar Jackson. They didn't against Jaden Daniels. But, again, Lamar's a totally different quarterback than Jaden. But I do think that one of them could potentially keep an eye on him. And I love Nakobe Dean coming downfield. And Nolan Smith's speed has been on display, and he's been really good. There was a lot of talk that was that a wasted first-round pick by the Eagles last year, but he is starting to show some signs of life this year. But you're not going to stop Lamar from running. You're not going to stop him from making plays. You just want to minimize when he starts to run the ball. Minimize. Don't let him get a 15, 20, 25, 30-yard gain. Keep it to 5-10 yards. Minimize that and put some hits on him. I'm not saying hurt him, but make him feel you so that he sees you coming. He's going to want to slide, maybe duck out of bounds. But keep it clean. Again, I don't want nothing to happen to Lamar. I love Lamar Jackson. And then on the defensive side of the ball, the key is going to be, again, minimize the big plays by Baltimore and force Lamar to try to beat you with his arm. He has the ability to do so. But I don't know if their receivers are going to be good enough against Quinyon and Cooper. It might be whoever Isaiah Rodgers is going up against. But Isaiah Rodgers has known this entire week that he's going to start. I expect him to be better than he was when he came into the game cold last week. But that's what I'm thinking. Just keep the big plays to a minimum, and let's see. Force Lamar to beat you. If he beats you with his arm, if the receivers, if Zay Flowers and Bateman, if the receivers beat Quinyon and Cooper, if they and it includes Likely and Andrews, more power to you. More power. You just got to tip your cap to the Ravens. They put a great game plan out there and they beat you. But don't let it be the Derrick Henry, Lamar Jackson run show that beat you. Your score. What's your prediction, man?
Oh boy. If there was a game for the rest of this stretch of season that I think we lose, I feel like it's this one. And I think that's the route that I'm going to take. I've been bouncing it around. Is it going to be the week 18 throw game, or is it going to be the Steelers, or is it going to be the Ravens? And I think it's going to be the Ravens. And it's not to say the Ravens are the better team. I just think that the Ravens are going to get the better of us this go around. Like you said, you love Lamar Jackson. I love Lamar Jackson too. I have a little more faith in what Lamar Jackson can do within the confines of his offense, throwing the ball or running or handing the ball off than I do Jalen Hurts at times, because I've seen the mistakes that he can make. And I wouldn't be surprised if one of those things is what costs a game, is making a mistake, whether it be running and fumble or an interception. So I'm giving it to the Ravens this week. But I do think it's just going to be an absolute shootout. 37-34 for the Ravens.
Wow. So you have it being high scoring. So, actually coming into, I'm 7-4 and you're 6-5 on Eagles picks. This year, you're on a 4-game win streak. I lost last week because I picked.
I don't want to be right. Like the fact that I'm streaking, I'm nervous.
Yeah, I don't want it to. Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a good game. I don't expect it to be as high scoring. I have it 28-24 Ravens. I think these are two, as we mentioned throughout the entire show, two evenly matched teams. It's just, I think the Ravens are battling with the Steelers for the division. So this is more important of a game record-wise, I think, to the Ravens. And I'm not saying it's not important to the Eagles. Obviously, every game's important. You want to keep pace with the Lions for the potential, potentially getting the number 1 seed. But again, the Eagles aren't winning. The Eagles aren't going to win out. They're going to lose a game. It's going to happen. Losing a hard-fought battle in Baltimore is nothing to be mad about. It's going to happen. They're bound to lose a game. and you don't want it to be a game in which, you don't want it to be the game against the Panthers that they lose, because that would be a game that we would be worried about. I don't think losing this game at this time because of what happened last year is going to give us PTSD. Like, we're not going to be like, oh no, here we go again. I just think that
absolutely,
it's just the circumstances of the game. It's the circumstances of where we're playing them at this point in the season. So I'm going to go with the Ravens 28-24. I hope I'm wrong, obviously. I hope Monday we come here and it's another Victory Green hour, but let's not.
I just hope that it's a really good game.
I think it's going to be a good game.
Exactly. I think it's going to be a really good game, and I think it's going to show why both of these teams are likely, are in the conversation with Super Bowl. There's a reason that I hope that is absolutely proven accurate, and I think it will be. I already know there's a reason that why the Ravens and Eagles are in that Super Bowl conversation, even despite how easy the schedule may have been for the Eagles at times to get there. Like you've said, you can only play what's in front of you. We've played what's in front of us, and we dug ourselves a hole early. We were 2-2 heading into our bye week. We were banged up. Things weren't looking good. And people were questioning firing our head coach. And here we are rolling. So it'll be a good game.
I hope Tech is right. We're beating the Ravens bucket. I hope you're right. But look, we're not going to win out. We're not going 15-2. 13-4, I can see happening. 14-3, maybe that might be a little bit of stretch. I think we both had them going 12-5, and they're already at 9 wins. And one more win it would get us to 10, and 2 more wins almost definitely potentially clinches us the division. Like, especially with the way Washington has been playing. Thank you all for tuning in to this week's edition, or to today's edition, preview edition of the Kelly Green Hour. As always, follow us on Twitter at Kelly Green Hour. Follow Connor on Twitter at Connor10. Follow me on Twitter at LJHurl54, and follow the Eagles Pinpool Network on Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your podcast at Eagles Pinpool Network. Subscribe and leave comments. Thanks, everybody, for all the comments. They were flying. It was tough to keep up with them all. We'll be back on Monday with a review of the game. Hopefully it's another Victory Green Hour. But until then, thank you for tuning in to the Kelly Green Hour.
Fly, Eagles, fly.